Thank you, Vimal. My esteemed co-panelists on the dais, captains of the industry, ladies and gentlemen. I think I would like to, during my presentation, try to connect the dots and the pieces of information that I think we've tried to soak in since today morning. My fellow speakers before me brought about the topic. We spoke about China, 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 India, India, India. Quite a few of us have mentioned the point about India moving from a $2.5 trillion economy to a $5 trillion economy in the next years. We're also convinced that for that to happen, the manufacturing space or the manufacturing industry has an important role to play. We also spoke about data points like India becoming the most populous country by 2030. We also touched about points like urbanization. I would just like to start with the topic to just provoke the audience in terms of forget going to the 5 trillion, forget becoming the most populous, forget adding the 1 trillion to the economy. Let's just for a moment stop the watch and think about where we stand today with the precious resources that we have, and what do we need as resources, and here I'm talking about natural resources, to really be able to deliver the number and that growth that we are talking about. Even today, coming summer months, key chemical industry producing states like Gujarat, we are already discussing whether manufacturing operations can run, because even at this level, we do not have enough water to run industry. And that is where I would like to start the overall presentation with, to cover topics around sustainability. These are a little bit my points of view, and it's never a my way or highway. We can always find a way to agree to disagree. Let's discuss about some global developments, and I can only comment about what we as a company, as Lanxess, are doing to make this, move towards a sustainable future. There's no doubt, I think, in anybody's mind that sustainability is the key. And I think it's very important for us to, think about sustainability beyond compliance. Let's talk about some of the extreme anomalies that have been observed worldwide. The world has been facing catastrophic flooding, typhoons. There's been an unprecedented damage to lives, property, and crops. Obviously, there's a lot of data out there which is clearly linking climate change to the damage that's doing to the global economy. We're all well aware of the warming of the oceans and the impact that is likely to happen, including several key cities around the world, like Maldives, Osaka, Bangkok, Mumbai, Miami, Ho Chi Minh City, that are likely to be inundated underwater because of rising sea levels. We know about the glacial retreat topic, leaving severe water shortages in the years to come. I think the world has witnessed what we've seen in the Australian wildfires recently, where hundreds of millions of animals have been killed. So obviously there's also a huge impact thereby on livestock as well as domestic animals. Let's come closer back home to India. In the year 2019, temperatures in India in certain parts touched or crossed 50 degrees Celsius for the first time ever. And the expectation into the future is much harsh. We've more than 44% of the country faced drought in 2019. We've also been faced with floods. Let's also not forget that at the end of the day, with what is being reported globally, and I would tend to believe at least some of those numbers, 15 of the 20 most polluted cities are in India. Air pollution is contributing to at least 2 million premature deaths in India every single year. I think it's definitely time to wake up. So from that perspective, let's just try to look at how the world is reacting to these various developments. I think it's pretty clear about the WC SDG goals, and I think that more than 200 member companies representing more than 19 million employees worldwide with US $8.5 trillion in sales are signatories to this. We also know that in the year 2016, when politicians around the world came to address the climate change topic, they signed the Paris Climate Accord, which essentially is basically to restrict the rise in temperatures to a maximum of 2 degrees Celsius. I think some of the trends that are clearly evolving also with the manufacturing and chemical industry, one of the topics is definitely to go climate neutral. There's a huge shift happening because the chemical industry at the end is a huge consumer of energy. We know we need a lot of power, electricity, utilities like steam, etc. for our manufacturing processes. Digitalization obviously is playing a role in that process, and maybe I will address that in a few seconds. And there's a lot of aligning of a lot of large multinational companies with respect to their product portfolios, which are happening along the lines of the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, whether you talk about the plastics, the issue regarding recycling of plastics, or in general waste, I think the reduce, reuse, recycle topic obviously is a trend in the industry. I think in India, the one good topic that we see is there is obviously from the government, there has been a huge push in wind and solar energy projects. The RPO is being mandated by the government. There's an increased focus on sustainability projects, also through corporate social responsibility projects, and of course, an increase in awareness on the implementation of the plastic ban. Now, essentially setting the context, come more to the topic of what are we as a company, Lanxess, doing to contribute or play our role responsibly in that area. I would like to tell you that, like I mentioned in the preceding slides, one of the key trends that has started in the Western chemical industry is to go climate neutral. For those of you who have followed that closely, you would have seen that quite a few large companies in the course of last year have announced that they would go completely climate neutral in the next decades. This, of course, means a lot of investments and a lot of effort, because it's not done that easily. I think one of the topics that was mentioned with respect to valuations of companies, etc., by my former speakers, also with respect to mergers and acquisition activities, etc., in the past, we only spoke about health, safety, environment topics. But I think this is one thing that we have to know also within the Indian chemical industry, that a lot of the mergers and acquisitions that are likely to happen in the future will also be guided by the climate neutral topic, because company boards have made it very, very clear that they will not pursue growth at any cost. And this is also extremely important for us to note how the world is changing radically and very, very fast. And if you see the trends, and I will give you one of the trends, we had a session on HR, and I think I'll just digress from the topic for just maybe 15 seconds. But we've been discussing diversity and inclusion of having women employees in the workforce for the last couple of years. Let's see how sharply that is changing. Not only have some countries mandated that it's compulsory to have a female board member by a certain year, but please look at the trends of companies, big investment banks like Goldman Sachs, whose CEO has clearly announced there is no regulation in the United States today that you need to compulsively have a female board member. But the Goldman Sachs CEO came out clean and said, we will not run a single IPO for a company. We will not take them to the capital markets if they do not have a female board member. So what I'm just trying to stress here is these are evolving trends, and even we in the Indian chemical industry have to be aware of how fast that world is changing. So the manner in which we have done business in the last 50 years might not be the manner in which we might be able to do business in the next 50 years. At Lanxess, we've clearly said that we would go carbon neutral by 2040. As I speak, we as a company globally operating with more than 60 production sites in 33 countries around the world have already reduced our CO2 footprint by 50% as I speak. By 2025, we want to further reduce that from 3.2 million tons to 2.4 million tons of CO2 emissions. And I'm very happy to tell you that our operations in India will play a very, very vital role, contributing also to that negative bridge. We've said very clearly, we have two manufacturing sites, one at Nagda, Madhya Pradesh, and the second is a multi-BU site producing for 5 different business units at Jagadia, Gujarat. We produce ion exchange resins, we produce biocides for the paint application, we have chemicals that go into rubber application, we have engineering plastics, manufacturing, etc., etc. We have clearly mentioned that both of our manufacturing sites will be completely CO2 neutral in the next 3 to 4 years in India. And then, of course, there are further plans in place. During this period, I can tell you, up till 2025, Lanxess has committed more than 100 million euros just for the topic of climate neutrality. So, just to cut our carbon emissions, we will spend more than 100 million euros into projects that have already been identified in that area. We will completely phase out coal, as I said, out of our manufacturing processes in India, and at the same time, we are cutting out, or we will be, we will split laughing gas nitrous oxide. This is one of the compounds which have one of the biggest negative impacts on CO2 emissions in our large site at Antwerp in Belgium. So you can see that it's minus 450,000 tons is what we planned at Antwerp. In India, we've already cut by a big time, and we are going to further cut in the next couple of years by more than 150 KT. And of course, as I said, companies are also aligning their portfolios to the Sustainable Development Goals. So Lanxess is also divesting businesses which are not in line with that. We recently divested a chrome chemicals business in South Africa also towards that goal. So you can see that here we will go in steps in Antwerp. A first step, where we will already eliminate it, and then of course 300,000 tons more will be eliminated. In India, as I've said, as we speak, we already use bio-based fuels, but at the same time, we are also operating solar, and we are also trading in wind energy. Including our headquarters in Thane, we have solar panels on our rooftop. That is also an example that I'd like to give others. If there's a possibility to do it, I think we should do it. We have manufacturing excellence teams which have started on a lot of projects which will at first look at completely reducing the consumption of energy at our plants in India. And of course, the second part will be to substitute the balanced energy requirement with renewables. We, of course, have a lot of products that are also sustainable solutions, which include lightweight engineering plastics. We have ion exchange resins for water treatment. We have some of the best processes for sustainable leather business. We have phthalate-free plasticizers. And of course, we have also polysilicons getting into photovoltaics, flame retardants, etc. With that, of course, all that we do is not going unrecognized. I think the Dow Jones Sustainability Index is one of the prime indexes globally, and Lanxess has been rated 4th in the world and the 2nd in Europe. For the 9th time in succession, we are in the Dow Jones, and we are of course a part of other metrics like the CDP, the FTSE for Good, Together for Sustainability, where we have been listed among the leading 5% by the global TFS assessment. And of course, there are other topics. Of course, in India, thanks to the Indian Chemical Council, we are also one of the founding members of the Nicer Globe initiative and are one of the 50-odd companies which are responsible care certified in India. So with that, I would just like to conclude my talk today. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. Thank you.